Boom. Alright, Daily Boy back here again with another one for y'all. Today we want to talk about a whole litany of things, really. I want to talk about the Bondi beach shooting in Australia that happened, and, many things along that line, essentially. And really, we want to talk about Islamic extremism versus moderate Muslims and what that looks like, and just have a conversation about it. You know what I mean? Because anytime an attack like this happens, or anytime Islamic extremism is pointed out, you'll always have the people who are pointing to the moderate Muslims. And even Muslims, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, don't really like that term. They don't like the term moderate Muslims or extremist Muslims or something like that. They just like the term Muslims. And, I mean, there's a bridge here where it's like, how many are actually extremists, how many are actually moderate. There's a whole concept that's given in the Islamic sort of religious scope or text that suggests that, at certain times, Muslims are meant to sort of, when they're not in power, meant to act a certain way, and then when they're in power, act a certain way. And, to a degree, this is fair, right? Like, even in a democracy, we understand that, when you're in a democratic society, you sort of have your ideas and your thoughts of how the world should work and what should happen and what the rules should be and all of these type of things. However, when you get outside of a democracy, not outside of a democracy, when within the democracy, we kind of go with the majority, right? So let's say your guy doesn't get elected. What do? You don't just like pick up your ball and leave. You could technically, but you participate in that society, and then you wait till the next election rolls around, and you basically try to elect whoever you want to get in power. Now, this stuff is really complicated because people are like, yo, we don't really know that who we're electing, and these things are totally our choices. But essentially, we do have a choice, and we do have power as a people. We do have a voice as a people. We do have the ability to recognize what's going wrong. And some of the issues that we're having is our ability to stand up for what we think is going on in the world. But let's get into this conversation and see how it goes. So, we're talking about the Bondi Beach shooting. If you guys haven't heard about this is a shooting that happened in Australia, ultimately killing about 16 people in total. If you count, 15 people died, and then one of the attackers died as well. The two attackers involved in the Bondi Beach shooting were named Sajid Akram and Naveed Akram. They were father and son duo who carried out this attack. So, a father and a son. Now, you guys are probably already like, all right, Sajid and Naveed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already know those are Islamic names, Muslim names, and most likely these attackers are Muslim. If you look at who they're attacking, they had attacked a Jewish festival. I think, what is it called again? It's slipping my mind. A Hanukkah thing, and it was like the beginning of the Hanukkah festival, essentially. And so these people, ongoers, were there. You would imagine that there are other people here too, right? There would have been non-Jewish people. There would have been secular Jewish people here, like, a lot of Christians, people who like a lot of Christmas people who like Christmas and celebrate Christmas and things like that. They're not necessarily Christians by any stretch. Even some people from other faith groups I see representing hard, because it's become a cultural norm. It's become a cultural thing. It's become a festival. You would imagine that there was probably Muslim people even at this event, and, in a way, the attackers here, given the fact, if we assume that they're doing this out of Islamic extremism, then we would assume that these people are killing their own Muslim people in, and they might even venture to say, well, they deserved it because they shouldn't have been there or something like that. This actually happened in Israel when the October 7th attack happened, because they actually they there. If you guys didn't know, there's about 2 million Arab living in Israel itself, right? And so some of them were shot. We saw videos of them being killed by the Islam and by Hamas. We could say, and let me just be clear: it's not just Hamas militants that went in there. Although, who is Hamas is really an interesting question, by the way, because Hamas is not like a military group in the sense of like they're walking around battle ready and they have on their full outfit and they have on the full, they have some kind of Hamas gear and they're out here with the strizzies and the big Hamas sign on their chest. You know what I'm saying? This is called guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare is very different. It's people in plain clothes. They look like civilians. Sometimes it's even young people that look like they shouldn't be a part, that are being used to carry out attacks and things like this. So when you see kids and kids and kids and stuff like that, sometimes it's a little, the language that people use in these things can be a little misleading, and we do that all the time. Like we do that with abortion and stuff like that. We wouldn't say they're killing a baby. A lot of times they use words like fetus, or they use a clump of cell, or they maybe say terminating a pregnancy, or ending a pregnancy, or women's rights, and like so there is a little bit of weighing through the rhetoric that's going on in order to understand what's going on as well. And so we do have a lot of civilians or people who maybe identify with Hamas or with the thing that came over in this attack and attacked people, but they attacked their own Muslim people. And so you can imagine, even in the Bondi attacks, they might have attacked people who are even other Muslims and things like that, right? Naveed had actually been, the Naveed dude, right? Had actually been flagged by Australian intelligence back in 2019 for having ties to known extremists. Though he wasn't considered an immediate threat at the time, both of them were inspired by ISIS. The whole event has definitely sparked a lot of discussions about how to handle these kinds of threats going forward. And so that's what people are thinking about. How do we even deal with this type of stuff, Specifically, investigators looked at the attackers. They had ISIS flags that they displayed during the attack, which was pretty direct indicator of their motive. Right? They also uncovered online communications from social media posts where the attackers had expressed support for ISIS and its ideology. Right? So they're looking through, this is typical stuff. They're looking through their social media feeds and things like that. And you could imagine in the coming days, this is what's going to happen is they're going to pour through all of these type of things and then they're going to release the information. Now, we have a major level of distrust in our society for authorities. And so it does become a little bit like, whose information do we trust and what do we trust? And what's crazy about this is both sides don't trust the information coming out. So you got like, the people who are, let's say, the more the people who are more sympathetic towards the Islamic side of these type of things, or the, let's say, we're gonna connect this most likely, and I'm just, we're not clear on what happened yet. We still have to wait to see what happened totally. We have to wait for the total manifesto to be released and things like that. Of course, now there's a lot of evidence where people are gonna be like, Dale, what are you talking about? You're not clear. Like, of course we know what happened. Of course we know. You know what I'm saying? But I like to wait. I like to see what's happening. I don't like to just assume. I like to, like, information gets like piecemealed out every day and whatnot, but both sides don't trust the institutions, you know what I'm saying? So for us, we would suggest, like, the people who are more on my side of these discussions would say that, yo, they're actually trying to cover it up. A lot of times they don't want to release the manifesto because they don't want you to know what really happened, and they don't want you to know that these are. And this is a pattern that we've seen, like happening with the Pakistani grooming gangs in England and other places where there's like these Muslim youths that are committing crimes and things like that. We even have a situation in Canada, and we're going to talk about events being shut down and those type of things. And they don't really tell you; they just say it's security threats. But let's be honest, we know what the security threats are. Like Christian Music Festival right here in Canada recently got shut down. This is the first year that I've been around in Canada that I know of where we weren't able to have the Christian Music Festival, and they said growing threats. And of course, we know at this time the Palestinian protesters was out there with their flags brandishing and things like that. And so I'm pretty sure threats were made, and I'm pretty sure, and like a lot of these Christmas market events and things like that are being shut down. So we kind of know what is conspiring or what's leading to these security threats essentially, right? But essentially we want to wait to see what comes out in the manifesto to really know what's going on, right? But there's a couple of clues here, right? It seems like they had an affinity or an affiliation with ISIS, or at least ISIS theology. This is the interesting thing about something, a group like Hamas or Boko Haram or ISIS or Taliban or whatever. You don't actually have to go through any training and get a badge and a suit and you know what I mean? You could just rock with the ideology and then you become a part of this. And this is why this stuff is super dangerous, because right now we have a lot of people who have this distrust in our government system and in our, like, what you call it, what I mean, going back to the disc. And a lot of youths are sort of taking up these cause. A lot of youths now these days, a lot of people that I know are so like willing to believe anything evil about Israel and America, and like anything you point at, like this same situation, there's lots of people that are saying, well, no, it's actually, they're willing to believe anything except for these mans did it. And it's a really conflicting situation, because you got people who at the same time saying that Israel is evil, they're wicked, and they're like, and like they're doing all this stuff. So validating an attack like this on them, and you have people who are celebrating the attacks, coming out openly celebrating the attack, which is like, there's an imam that came out and celebrating this attack, and a lot of other little Muslim faction groups and things like that coming out, pro-Palestinian supporters and things like that coming out and just saying, yo, bro, like this is, and they're rocking with it. The same thing with the Charlie Kirk attack when Charlie Kirk died. You know what I mean? We've got people doubting that a leftist would do this, but at the same time, leftists were celebrating it, singing songs about it, dancing in the streets. On to now, there's still people that are like, yo, I just watched a video that was a guy live saying, he's using the word F around and find out, you know what I'm saying? And so he's basically using that in terms of Charlie Kirk. And people are still like this. They still think that this guy deserved to die. And so they're saying with the same breath, when they call people fascists, when they call people Islamic, when they call people, when they say the Jews are evil and they're controlling everything and all blah blah blah. You're green lighting these people to kill people, or you're green lighting people to be killed. You're saying that they should be murdered, like in those sense, right? And you're saying that because they're evil and all this type of stuff. Now, Bondi is not really connected to anything, really, right? Except of the logical leap that we're making currently, because Bondi Beach attack happened in Australia, has nothing, it's not in Palestine, it's not in Israel. The Israelis that are living there are not, you know what I mean, they're not like connected to anything. An interesting thing to think about when we think about Israelis, a lot of Israelis don't even support the current government or the regime there right now, the Netanyahu government. Sometimes they're very critical of these governments. So they're not all monolithic. They don't all think the same. This is one thing that I hate when people are saying the Jews, the Jews, the Jews, the Jews. They're always implicating the Jews as if Jews are all monolithic. Like there's some Jews that agree with you, my guy. There's some Jews that are like, yeah, fam, like I don't rock with this. I don't think what happened in Gaza should have happened. Like I don't think this, the government responded appropriately. I think they could have done it cleaner. I think the scale of the response was not fitting the original crime and things like that. Now, that's debatable. You guys could debate it because when we look at historically wars and the ratios of combatants that are killed to thing, when we look at the fact that these are guerrilla warfare areas, when we look at the fact that like Hamas has tunnels and they're burying themselves underneath, and when we look at the fact of like what the attack was meant to do in the first place, to provoke a response from Israel and then paint them as this big bad evil guy. It's a hand tied behind the back type of situation. It's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't situation. And so here we've got a densely populated area, urban warfare, guerrilla warfare, all of these things to factor in. You know what I'm saying? You've got a military that's not really a military. They don't have a military base. They don't have their operating out of hospitals and schools and things like that and carrying out their crimes. And you've got a society that has bred hatred for each other over a long historical war that's going on. You know what I mean? And so you've got all of these challenges. So if you look at various wars in the past and you look at the amount of people that died or was displaced in those wars, World War II, World War One, you look at wars that are going on right now in Syria, wars that are going on in places like Sudan. You look at places like what's happening in Nigeria, and like the time period that's elapsed. Nigeria still got a Nigeria video to come out. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot less time and a lot more deaths. I think 2,900% more deaths in Nigeria than in the Gaza Palestine thing. And you could go on and on, right? Like we could talk about Russia versus Ukraine and what's happening there and why that's not being given the same sort of attention that we see from these other incidents. You know what I'm saying? And so it is quite there is a whole debatable thing going on there. However, we've got Israelis that are totally secular. Sometimes you got Israelis that have nothing to do with any religious affinity. In fact, I believe it's something like 15% of all of the Jewish population in Israel that identifies with what they call Orthodoxy or Orthodox Judaism. And there's a sector of Orthodox Jews that also don't believe that the current regime should be in place. And it's so weird. There's one sect that actually believe that that regime should be under oppression right now because like that's sort of it's a thing of like what they believe about God and his sovereignty and how he has worked in the past to deliver Israel and things like that. Very interesting stuff to think about. So there's so many different thoughts and things like that. Of course, you've got about 40% of Israel currently, which is totally secular. So they don't have any religious affiliation and anything like that. But you've got hatred that's bred between these two communities for a long time. And I would draw it back even farther than that. If we were to go into this, really, we would look at what the Islamic text says about the Jews and what happened in Muhammad's time, where he ended up developing an enmity for the Jewish people, where he was promising that these guys are gonna show you, they're gonna affirm my prophethood and whatnot, and they rejected him, even the Christians, and so they became an enemy. In fact, at some point, Muhammad, if you look at the Islamic text, it'll tell you that they used to pray facing the wall, just like the Jews did. They used to pray standing, just like the Jews did. And then he switched these things because he's like, we want to be the opposite from the Jews. I believe at that time there was some Jewish men that came and they had like their beard a certain way, and he switched the order of how they're gonna do their beard. He's saying, okay, they're growing their mustache, cutting their beard. We're gonna cut our mustache and grow our beard. So it's interesting to see that he and this kind of is even interesting to think about how revelation came and like which things came from revelation and which things were based on human logic and those type of things. But we're digressing essentially. But there is a historical factor to even the beef coming back from the rejection of Muhammad as a prophet from the Jewish people. Then you've got, if we want to go all the way back, some people believe, and this one is a little bit spurious, however, some people believe that you've got, two brothers, Jacob and Esau, or you've got not Jacob and Esau, sorry, you got Isaac. Jacob and Esau, is it? Yeah, you've got these two brothers. I believe it's Jacob and Esau. Yeah, Ishmael and Isaac. Actually, sorry, I knew I was getting it wrong. Ishmael and Isaac, and they believe that there was a war going on in the stand. This is actually true to the biblical account. There was a war going on from in Rebecca's stomach with these two youths, and then they were born, and then of course they split up. Some people believe that the line of Muhammad came through the line of Ishmael, whereas the line of the Jewish people ultimately came through the line of I always get these guys, Isaac. I always get those four brothers sort of mixed up. Anyways, those two pairs of brothers, I should say. But so they believe that this tension sparked from even then. Now that also needs leveling out. Like it's probably more of a historical claim too, because although that would explain some of the beef and like not only physical but a spiritual plane, it also kind of creates a situation in which you got this problem because they say the Arabs came from the line of Ishmael, and so because Muhammad is from the line of the Arabs, ultimately he is, this validates, him coming from that line of Ishmael. However, Arabs were mentioned before Ishmael exists, so he doesn't seem to be the father of the Arabs, as people would say. If you look into it, you'll find out that the Arabs already existed. Now, the language Arabic or the Arab language was mentioned, which means Arabs existed, not necessarily Arab people, but Arab people are people who speak Arabic. And so, what I'm saying? It's like one of those things that work as a defeater to the claim, and it is one of those things that's very hard to validate, because when you go that far back in history, it becomes the evidence, and tying empirical evidences to these things is going to become supremely difficult. Anyways, so we need to see the manifesto. Some of you guys are probably like, what's a manifesto? It's a public declaration by an individual, group, or party outlining their core beliefs, intentions, and plans for change, often rejecting the status quo to purpose a new vision for art, political, politics, or life, acting as both a system of purpose and a call to action. It's a powerful tool for persuasion, like a political party's election platform or an artistic movement, revolutionary ideas, but can also be a personal creed for individual guidance, emphasizing action and goals. So, oftentimes, when these people do these things, whether it's school shootings done by like white liberal trannies and, like, what I'm saying, like in the US, or whether it's this Bondi Beach shooting that happened, so a lot of times you'll find out that these people had a manifesto. And this is why we don't trust these guys either, the authorities, because a lot of authorities, and to a degree, what, I'm not even blaming them, bro. Like, in a way, there is something brewing in the background. There's something terrible coming. I'm sorry to tell you guys, it is coming. And if you guys are Christians, you guys know this is coming. If you guys are Muslims, you guys probably know this is coming. If you know your religious text, at least you know it's coming. And so this thing that's coming is so scary, it's so devastating, it's so deadly, that people want to pretend like it's not happening. They want to ignore it. They want to brush it under the rug. This happened in the US, I believe it's 2008 when they had the what do you call it, the recession. Before the recession was about to happen, there was some guy that was very like hip on the financial side of things. I think there's a movie about it, and he knew that this collapse would happen, and he bet against the housing market. He created, I believe, like one of these things. Is like I forget what it's called, but like a stock thing where he could bet against the market, right? And he was allowed to because a lot of people did not foresee that this could happen or would happen, and then he kind of predicted it because he knew the crash was ultimately going to come, and so he bet against the market. And I remember, people trying to, when it was happening, they were trying to be in denial about it. They figured if they just pretended it didn't exist, this is kind of like, you know the kid that go, we all did it, man. We pulled over our blankets over our head, and we thought, okay, if we can't see the monster that's outside, then like they can't see us either. Or this is a lot like, I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, I've heard ostriches are so dumb that they stick their head in these holes in order to like to get away from predators. Of course, they got their big ostrich body full of meat out there for the lion to, or whatever predators coming to devour this thing. But in their brain, they're safe if they're just like, if they're not seeing it. If their head is in the hole, they're safe. And so I feel like sometimes this is what's happening in our society. If we just pretend to ignore these things, we can act like they're not present. And I think that's what's been happening. You know what I mean? If you look at, even the Pakistani grooming gang situation in England and various other things, even what the government in Nigeria is doing, because the government is just trying to be like, well, we don't look at it this way as Christians being killed or this one being killed or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So they think that, well, I believe they're lying, but I think they're trying to portray it as if they think that like if we don't think about it this way, we won't foster hate between the two communities. I do this video though, bro, I do want to talk about Ahmed al-Ahmed, which is, but let me just say off the cuff, bro, like I'm very like, this is the hero, bro, this is the man. I'm very impressed with this guy. I love what he did, and I like love, and I have so much to say about it, but I want to go through the whole content that I have for you guys, and then we'll get to Ahmed Al Ahmed, and we'll talk about this. And actually, you guys will be surprised to see that there's a positive thing to this whole video that I want to say and give, and a tool that honestly I think will help to fix the problem in the earth. Although I'm certain that it's gonna come to that eventually. We're gonna go there to the verbal extent. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. You know what I'm saying? But let's get to it. Let's see. So these things take time. That's one thing I wanted to say too. Is just let's wait. Let's watch. Let's see. Let's be diligent. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's not jump to assumptions. Let's see, even Charlie Kirk, all of the situations that's been going on with these type of things. Again, like we like to just make statements off the bat. I mean, I know I'm here kind of early-ish talking about it anyways or whatever, but I mean, I am reserved a little bit to wait to see what's going to happen. A lot of what I have to say wouldn't change whether the situation turns out to be different from what it seems anyways, because I mean, let's take away this event, we still have lots and lots of things to like base some of the things that I'm saying on, right? Like we have a lot of violence and extremism coming out of like the Islamic community globally, and a lot of tensions going on, and a lot of divisions on where people fall on who they see as the good guy, who they see as the bad guy, and those type of things on both sides, right? And so let's wait. That's one thing I wanted to say as well. Let's see. So there was a Russian guy, a Russian Jewish couple named Boris and Sophia Gorman. I believe that's how you say their name. who were involved in the Bondi Beach attack, they were actually among the first victims, and they tried to stop the gunman by tackling him and attempted to disarm him. Unfortunately, they both lost their life in that act of bravery. So big up to Boris and Sophia, bro. These are two Russian Jewish people. They probably Jews from Russia that migrated to Australia or was just there for the event or something like that. They saw this happening. They rushed in to help out. And so big ups to all the people who tried to play a hero in this case. Of course, you know, they they got met with the force, Let me just say this, man, I was trying to get a gun, you know what I'm saying? Whoop-de-doo, right? I started looking into it, and I really wanted to try to get something. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I want it for self-defense. I don't want like a hunting rifle, something. I'm not going hunting, bro. I'm not going in the woods and lie down and try to catch a turkey. Gee, I'm gonna buy that turkey from the thing. I'm sorry, it's not my thing. I mean, I'm not opposed to going maybe gaming one, two times or something like that, but it's not my thing, you know what I'm saying? I don't like to ockle up myself anyways, you know what I'm saying? But I wanted to conceal and carry. I wanted to have the thing on me, you know what I'm saying? And for that purpose, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking about my community, I'm thinking about my family, I'm thinking about like the stuff that I talk about online, and I'm thinking about how people you might react and stuff like that. I'm thinking I'm a law abiding, reasonable, rational citizen. I'm thinking I have but apparently in Canada, it's not possible, right? There is a loophole that I looked into, and the loophole basically allows for you to be an armed guard. Now, it would be job specific, so you would only be having it when you're at work, on duty, wherever you're defending. And you would also like have strict regulations as to how to move it around the place. And so it really is discouraging. It's a lot of work. It's still possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say you have your local church or something like that you feel like there could be threats around and things like that, and you wanted to have something carrying on you in case, god forbid, a bad guy with a gun comes in there and tries to like do something, or something happens, and you need to be ready in order to help to disarm the situation, or help to figure out the situation. Here in the Bondi Beach attack, you know what I'm saying? Australia has some of the strictest gun laws possible. You know what I'm saying? And although the incidence of gun violence in Australia is a lot less than somewhere like, say, in the US, the statistics are kind of confusing, because what you have is a lot of the gun violence that is carried out that you see is illegal guns that are being. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, man. Like, the criminals, they got the guns. You know what I'm saying? We know they have them. Like, go turn on your TV, go to CP24 and see what going on CP24. Shooting here, shooting there, shooting. Ask how these mans got the guns, bro. You think people who are criminal types are really worried about the gun laws, bro? You know what I'm saying? A lot of these mans are carrying because they're pushing drugs and they're doing various other nefarious things. Or let's say a man is intent on murdering people. You know what I'm saying? You think that man that's gonna commit the M is gonna decide, oh well, the guns are illegal, so I'm not gonna. No, man, they're gonna get their hands on it, and they have them, and everywhere these things are happening, where people who are bad guys have guns, and then so when it's really suicidal, I don't understand what's going on. I do know that the chance of gun violence happening more often if more people have guns, that is going to be increased. But I do know that there's a huge risk in like tyranny from a government that overreaches its authority and is able to control the population based on the fact that they don't have guns. So if you look at, the Holocaust and those a lot of these atrocities, this is one of the things that happens. They disarm the community first. If you look at even in the Bible, if you look at what happened in the book of Esther, those Jewish people were going to get wiped out in the book of Esther. And what Esther managed to do through prayer and fasting and going into the king's chamber and asking the king to like redact his thing. He couldn't redact it. He couldn't take back the thing. But what he did was he allowed the Jews to arm themselves so that they could fight against the attackers that were coming to attack them on that day. And they ultimately won that battle. And that's how they were able to thrive or succeed. 99% of these situations. Now, I'm not saying there's not cases where the Holy Spirit didn't stop someone from being able to. I've seen those videos, I've heard those testimonies, I've seen those witnesses, and Jesus is able. But I'm saying that a lot of times when you got these school shootings and you got these, acts of terror, or you got these random dudes on rampages, these what they call mental health people going around and just whacking people all over the place, it is stopped by another person with a gun. You know what I'm saying? Usually a police officer, a first responder, somebody who shows up and has this drizzy on them and is able to bust back shots. And that's how these things are stopped, essentially. We've got a situation in the States where just outside of a church at a vacation Bible school, a guy came to shoot up the church, and they would have shot up, they came to the vacation Bible school, they would have shot up children, you know what I mean? And those men whacked him before he got inside. No casualties except him. He's the only person that died in that situation. And so, you know, this stuff is kind of weird. It's kind of weird that our government, and I'm fully in support of gun control. I'm fully in support of making sure you vet people properly, making sure you know what they're about, making sure you like check into their criminal background and their history, check their health, mental health and stuff like that. Make sure they pass certain gun safety regulations. You know what I'm saying? I'm fully but I do think that it should be on you and ready, because like, there are some gun safety laws that don't even make sense. It makes you impotent. Again, you gotta have the thing locked down, you gotta have it in your trunk, you gotta close it, you gotta push it in the thing. Bro, man is gonna come for you at the time, or be like dealing with people, how these Bondi shooters are dealing with people, and then you gotta be like, hold on, let me go in my trunk. Where's my keys to the thing? Oh my gosh. I know some of y'all don't even have your car keys and you're driving, you know what I'm saying? I know this silly, but you get what I'm saying. You're not gonna find that key when you're ready. You're not gonna be able, your thing is not gonna be ready and functional. You gotta make sure you're taking out this thing and making sure that it, like, it's like a car, you gotta start it ever so often, make sure you rev it, make sure you drive it around a little bit. So you gotta make sure you're, taking care or maintaining your firearm in order to be able to think. You know what I'm saying? I still think, you know what I mean? Ultimately, I'm going to try my thing and go through the proper channels and try to get whatever I can get for now and just have it, you know what I'm saying? God forbid, like, if I need it or whatever, like, it's just here. Even if I have to follow the laws and keep it locked down or whatever, keep it in the house, keep it where, you know what I'm saying? I'm still probably going to do that. And ultimately, I am going to try to get the armed guard license and things like that. And I'm going to see if this is a system that we can implement and whatnot. And let me just say that churches, bro, anyways, like, we'll go to the churches and this type of stuff eventually. But, like, let me just say this quickly. I think that, churches and places of worship and even schools and stuff like that, you guys need to start taking these routines seriously and like making sure you're training the kids on what to do and how to move, making sure the teachers are prepped and aware, and making sure that there's systems in place. I would say even having armed guards on the school premises and things like that, walking around. If I'm wrong, you guys could let me know why you think that might be an issue or something like that down in the comment section or something, or whatever, like message me personally. But I see this as a virtue, you know what I'm saying? Being ready, even within the church sphere, like, we ought to take sometimes as a congregation and, like, as leaders in the church to say, hey, man, like, let's think through this. Where are our exits? You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone came in from here, what do we do? Like, how do we move? You know what I'm saying? What about the elderly? You know what I'm saying? Every time you get on a plane, they'll show you a whole bunch of the exit is over here in case anything happens. A mask is gonna drop down. Make sure you put on your own mask first before you help to take care of other people and blah blah. Make sure your luggage is stowed underneath in case of an emergency. Blah blah. And they have these step by step process. I think it would be helpful or something that we should think through for sure. As even in Canada here, I know, even in Canada here, especially given what's going on, thinking through how we should address these situations. And we should even take it farther. We should think about some of these doormen that we have, and like taking them through the appropriate channels, and maybe lobbying Congress to be able to like slacken the laws around this, to have some of these guys be able to get at least a firearm when they're on the present when they're on the premises and things like that in certain places, or at least certain community members. You know what I mean? Because again, it's taking a while before the officers show up. You know what I'm saying? And in that meantime, it's your sons, it's your daughters, it's your people. You got to start thinking about these things. You know what I'm saying? That are getting whacked. Bruh, I don't know how I would feel, bro. Like if a man's were to run in, and I know my fams and things like that, bro. And I know a lot of them are not ready, and I know like they're gonna freeze up and pray, And I know me as a grown adult dude that thinks about this type of stuff. Like I'm watching, I'm vigilant, I'm seeing new faces. I'm like, yo, who's this person? Who's he? You know what I'm saying? I'm like paying attention and stuff like that. I know some of my homies in the church, big up to y'all. You know what I'm saying? Who are like me too. You know what I'm saying? Going, yeah, I'm sorry, bro. It come to this now these days. If you go to a church and a man question you, it's okay. Like, it's fine. They're looking out for their people too. You know what I'm saying? But they're willing to go and be like, yo, fam, like, hey, what's up? Like, what you doing? Like, are you looking for someone? Do you have, what I mean? Where you going? Like, can I help you? What do you need to find? You know what I'm saying? Kind of being vigilant, you know what I'm saying? So, it's not just me, but like, we need to think through these things as well. And not even, I must encourage you guys as the Muslims too, if any Muslims are listening to me, you know what I'm saying? Even in your mosques and stuff like that, hatred is everywhere, my dog, you know what I'm saying? Big ups, like just take care of your guys' self. Make sure you guys are staying safe. Make sure you guys are staying, we're gonna talk about the moderates and the extremists eventually too, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get there, right? So we talked about that already. 16 people dead total, 43 people injured in the shooting. One officer, a constable, Scott Dyson is his name, and then another was this guy was seriously injured, but is in stable condition. You know, um, I think North South Wales detective is credited with taking down one of the attackers from 40 meters away. The police haven't released all the officers' name publicly for for a reason, of course. I support that. Don't really don't release their names. You know what I mean? But you know, when this incident happened, there are some, even the police in Australia, as far as I understand it, are sort of impotent. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry to use that word, but like what I mean is like they're impotent, meaning they're not powerful because they've been sort of defanged, if you will. I've heard, I'm not sure, but I've heard that they're not allowed to carry the same way, and I believe certain other places too, you're allowed to carry like pepper sprays and batons and stuff like that. And if you do have a thing, it's in the trunk, locked down, some kind of weirdness like that. And so be careful, you know what I'm saying, when you like this like take away the power from these men and women that are supposed to be doing their job, that's not allowed to do their job. When you're starting to put certain regulations and stipulations around these people so that they're scared to do their job because they could, like, you could get sued for anything and all types of stuff. Some of these men, when this incident is happening, is probably even second guessing what to do. I saw a meme where they're like Australia, and they're like, showing them like, really strapped up and coming at you hard for like a social media post or something like that. And then they're showing Australian police in the Bondi attack, and they look very timid and afraid and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting to think about. I saw another social media post where they were saying that the Bondi hero is gonna get like arrested for this a Babylon V post. Those ones are hilarious. They're saying that this guy's gonna get arrested for unlawfully hot handling a firearm because he took the firearm away from that person. Now they're joking, of course. I don't think Australia is gonna actually do that, but it's funny to think about because of how Australian policies has been so far. So what I'm saying. It wouldn't be too wild to see them actually try to like charge that man, but again, I don't think so. I don't think they would. So, Reuven Morris. This is another guy people don't know about. 62-year-old member of Sydney, Chabad community who sadly lost his life during the Hanukkah event at Bondi Beach in December 2025. He had moved to Australia back in 1970 from former Soviet Union and was known for his charity work. On the day of the attack, he tried to protect others, throwing bricks at the gunman after seeing someone else disarm one attacker. He must have seen Ahmed Ahmed, the dog, Ahmed al-Ahmed, disarm. Ahmed al-Ahmed, for those of you who are not familiar with like these Arabic type names, is like it just means Ahmed, son of Ahmed. You know what I'm saying? Meaning his dad had the same name as him. You know what I mean? There's another phrase that's used sometimes, Bint. Bint means daughter of. You know what I'm saying? So, sorry, or, I think that's what it means, daughter of. And you know what? I'm not going to go too far with the Arabic, but you get what I'm saying. So, his name is Ahmed, son of Ahmed, essentially, right? So he might have saw this happening, and he was like, "Oh, this man got one of them," and tried to throw bricks at the other one, trying to get him. Man, big ups to these people, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's faith in humanity, G. Like, yo, I'm gonna tell you something. If we bond together like this, bro, these things are not gonna go too far, even without weapons. I'm showing you, like, if we rush these shooters and things like that, oh, of course, mans are gonna die in the process. But we don't know how many people those mans ultimately saved. You know what I'm saying? Ahmed Ahmed had the opportunity, had the gun trained on the dude, had the opportunity to take him out. Big man, he still didn't do it, and he took two shots from the son. While he's disarming the father, he took two shots from the son. You know what I'm saying? My Dukes is in the hospital right now, I believe, still recovering and whatnot. Amazing, amazing stuff to think about. It's sad that this happened, but I think it's important to big up the heroes in these situations. There's another person. Oh, so during the tragic shooting at Bondi Beach in 2025, a number of surf lifesavers, so these are lifeguards, they let me see what it says, really stepped up heroically. They were actually at the beach for their own holiday party when the incident happened, and they immediately jumped into action, turning their clubhouses into emergency triage spots, and using whatever they had on hand, helping the wounded. Some even ran barefoot towards the scene with medical supplies, or pulled out some safety, or pulled people to safety from the water. So they really did show incredible courage and played a big role in helping people that day. So those are you always hear about Ahmed. You don't hear about Reuven Morris. You don't hear about Morris and Sophia. You don't hear about these guys. But there's probably lots more heroes even there that we can give ratings to, that probably did a lot to help people that day, but you probably haven't heard of, right? I'm gonna come back to my dog Ahmed Al Ahmed at the end of this. Essentially, before the attack, right? Let's see. Before the attack, so you know, upon the speculation of this whole situation happening, one of the things that happened is, people are saying, well, when these things are happening in Gaza, what do you expect? You're breeding hate, and so people are gonna react this way. It's despicable. They shouldn't have did it. But they're trying to say, man, like this is what's gonna happen. It's a weird thing for people to say, because in one hand they're saying, hey, it shouldn't have happened, but then they're also trying to kind of justify it by saying this is what happens when, you got Israel in this war with Palestine. Although, that war is done, they're still saying that the hatred is being bred and whatnot. And in a way, that is sensible. And I think it was one of the things that the attack was meant to do. I don't think for a moment that Hamas thought they would have defeated Israel on that day, or that they had the capability to defeat Israel at all. I do believe that it was a sort of poke the bear, get a reaction out of them, brandish them as super evil, garner the attention of the world around you. And we're going to talk about some of that just now in here too. And you'll see some of where that strategy is being played into. And I think that was one of the missions that they had. But before this even happened, like, there was already many people were there, which is not apparent. There was many people who were yelling "Gas the Jews" in Sydney by the Opera Building in October on October 8th. So this is before the response from from the from the Israeli military before they went into Gaza. So what we have around the world is people celebrating this October 7th attack. And so, it does kind of take away the fang from this argument that, this is a response to what happened in Gaza, because you do see tensions building even before that happened. And now people will say, well, there's an occupation that's going on in Gaza, and that is a part of the response. But then you're saying, okay, it's not really about the response. That might have fueled it as well, but there was already reasons for this to happen prior to, based on the fact that some people classify what's going on in that region as an occupation, right? I mean, again, some of the stuff we would be able to argue and dispute with, and some of it we can agree with and whatnot, but we can't totally say that these things weren't building up from before even the Gaza situation happened, right? So you got people yelling gas to Jews outside of there. You got like marches that kept going on against the Jewish community. We have examples of people burning, Canadian and American flags and upholding flags from nations that hate America and our countries that and they're holding up the flag of the country they fled from. So they're burning, these flags and whatnot in these countries and walking around and whatnot. What this does do is it invites this type of attack, because what happens is when a society starts to tolerate these things happening, right, these open anti-Jewish type sentiments, when they're failing to go and persecute people. So you got like synagogue that got burnt in, I think, 2015 or something like that. You've got, what I'm saying, anti-Jewish things being tagged on like synagogues and things like that. You've got like people coming out openly supporting Hitler, and you've got about 20 attacks total on the Jewish community, like, that was coming out. Australia is a great place for Jews to live. Don't get it twisted, but since the attack, from before the response even, you've got a lot of attacks that made this community feel vulnerable. These people in Australia have reported not feeling comfortable wearing being openly being Jewish, wearing things that would signify the fact that they're Jewish. They feel uncomfortable sending their kids to these Jewish like schools and things like that. So there is a tension that was building already, and there is some onus on the government's failure to react in time, and we have to be attentive of that even here. What to do about it exactly, I don't know. I don't know if I have the the proper prescription. I do have a prescription, but my thing is like spiritual. It's about not only prayer but putting action and prayer together. And my thing is about I mean, preaching the gospel and helping people to come to a point of having Jesus. And of course, we believe that God is love, and He's the emblem of self-sacrificial love, and people having to come to a point of where they start to love their enemies and pray for their enemies and start to, like, what I'm saying, have Christ, the light of Christ in them, and have a self-sacrificial way about them where they're willing to give up certain things that everybody's fighting for land and all this type of stuff. And if we get to a spiritual level where we realize that these things are superficial and like there's a greater thing out here, I'm not saying be dormant and get ran over, and I'm not saying be pacifist and allow injustices to occur or anything like that. We still have to stand on business, but love is the cure to hate, and God is love, and Jesus is that love. The first greatest command is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, might, strength, and soul. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself, and your neighbor is anyone who is in need. So it's about loving God and loving people, and I believe Jesus is the answer, of course. But don't ask Dilly Boy. Otherwise, what do we do? Do we deport all the Muslims or something like that? And how did that practically work out? Do we stop like people from entering from Muslim countries? Do we separate the world into two and say, yo, you guys stay on your side, we stay on our side. You guys do your thing there. We'll do trading or whatever. But like, what I'm saying? Let's not intermingle. Let's not mix. Like, what I'm saying? Do we open up the whole world and allow for Christians to preach the gospel and build churches and and synagogues or whatever in Muslim nations as well, and like have a fair trading of ideas? And that's a good, like, I like that idea. That would be great. You know what I'm saying? Like, we let ideas battle against ideas rather than allowing violence to become a key. Let's like just debate the issues. And I seen a lot of people say, well, Charlie Kirk was racist and this and that, and like he shouldn't. Well, if he's like stupid and he's a racist and he's all this, just debate him. Just keep talking to him, keep embarrassing him, keep making videos about him online, keep showing his lack of reasoning skills. Right now, I got major issues with Candace Owens, right? And how she's been getting on for the longest time. I would not advocate for someone, Candace Owens. I do, however, think that some of the ideas and the logic and the reasoning can be exposed as fallacious. I do, however, think that there's things that she's done where it seems like she's lying, and we can verify that, here she says this, and look, here she's saying this, and look, here she said that, and look, here she's saying this. I was about to make a video called "A Thousand Lies" by Candace Owens. You know what I'm saying? I was gonna put a couple hundred, but like, you know what I mean? Because when I go through her videos, sometimes I find lies after lies after lies. I don't know if she's doing it on purpose. Sometimes I don't know if she's just reiterating things in her own framework and in her own mind and saying this is what someone said when they said this or whatever. But I would never advocate for her to die. I would just think that as a rational human being, I can show where her rationality lacks. And so I think this is the thing with religion as well. If we open up the borders, we say, yo, you guys come here, you guys build your mosque, you show, you know what I'm saying? You say your thing, we'll say our thing. We get to talk about your prophet. We get to like talk about your, we get to build our churches in your countries as well. Like that's a possible solution. We open up the world. Or do we segregate the worlds and we say, hey, this is the Christian side, this is the Muslim side, this is the Jewish side. You know what I mean? You guys, stay to your pockets, free trade, everything, but let's not intermingle. Let's not allow anybody who identifies as a Muslim to be seeded into the Christian population. Is that what we do? Daily Boy doesn't know. I don't know. I don't got the answers. You know what I'm saying? You don't got the answers, Sway. You know what I mean? So, man, we at 56 minutes already. Let's see what else we got here. So we got another guy who died, Nono FG Laureo, Lourei, Lareiro, maybe that's the word, RO. And he's apparently a physician at MIT Plasma Science Fusion Center. apparently this guy was also killed December 15, 2025, and apparently he made some anti-Hamas posts. He's a Jewish dude, and the authorities are investigating the case. There was another shooting as well, I believe, in the U.S. where it was a school shooting. I believe that two people lost their life, and I don't have the details of that one right now, but at the same time, I believe that guy's at large. They haven't caught him yet, and it's kind of raising a lot of questions about how well the feds, how capable the feds in the U.S. is, or how easy it is for someone to kind of get rid of it. It even raises questions over the Charlie Kirk killer, and like if his parents hadn't turned him in, whether they would have been able to actually find him or not, right? Right now, Paris in Paris City, they usually have this. They ring in the New Year's with this champagne crown unapologetic. I don't know if I can pronounce this word. Jus de Verre. It's this year they're not doing it. It's usually a huge celebration that happens in France, and it's about, I believe, over 1 million people that attend usually, or that is at this event. I believe I have the information here as well. It draws a crowd. It announced a 37 massive midnight concert that drew a jubilant crowd of 1 million people last year, with festivities having drawn throngs. Throngs, is that what it is? To the most beautiful avenue in the world. So this time they decided they were going to cancel it again because of growing threats, and we've had these type of things happening over and over again. And some people are wondering what we're talking about. Yo, fam, like, you know, a lot of people are now getting intimidated into closing their functions, closing. And we're talking about France here, we're talking about Canada here, we're talking about the US here, we're talking about, I mean, not Israel, like, in the midst of Israel or something like that, who's actually involved in the war. We're talking about people who are not really involved in the war. Yeah, there's like funding and things like that that goes in and out of these countries, but these are countries that let in a vast amount of immigrants with their suicidal empathy, and now they're paying the price for it because now there's a lot of people in here that don't rock with their values. Now, supporting Israel or not supporting Israel, that's another story. Now that comes with like, and there's teams to this stuff. You got Iran and China and all these other nations that are sort of together. Even Venezuela is in that, I believe, and what I mean, Russia and all these type of people. They're all sort of together, right? And then you've got the Western nations, you got like, Canada, the US, and a bunch of other nations that kind of rock together, sort of like the NATO sort of gang, if you will. And you've got this tension between the two heads. But then you've got all of these migrants also that are in these countries as Muslim migrants that, some of them are extremists. Again, we're going to talk about al-Ahmed a little bit later. And again, stick around for that, bro, because that's going to be interesting. But, you know, given the fact that we have such dissension in our own communities, right? You're like, you know, it's becoming a little bit hard to operate in these societies now these days, right? You got like the Nice attack, right? You got the Paris attack, you've got the shoe bomber, you've got the Orlando attack, you've got the Beltway snipers, you've got the Fort Hood shooter, you got the underwear bomber, you got the Westminster attack, you got the 2025 Bali bombing, you got the murder of Lee Ridgeby, you've got the USS Cole bombers, you've got the London Bridge attack, you've got the Madrid train bombers, you've got the Charlie Hebdo attackers, you've got the San Bernardino attacks, you've got the Surabaya bombing. I know I'm butchering some of these names, it's okay. You got the Minnesota mall stabbing, you got the 7 7 bombers, you got the Moscow theater attackers, you got the Boston Marathon bombers, you got the Ankara airport attack, you got the Manchester Arena bombing, you got the Pan Am uh, number 103 bombers, you got the Iranian embassy takeover, you got the Air France hijacker, you got the 2022 Bali nightclub shooting, you got the Beta Mina attacks, you got the Beirut embassy bombers, you got the Lebanon US embassy attacker, you got the Yazidi massacre in 2014, you got the beheading of the French priest, you've got the Buenos Aires bombers, you got the Israeli Olympic team, you got the Kenyan U.S. Embassy situation. You got the Kobar tower bombers. You got the Beirut marine bombers. You got the Byzantine school attackers. You got the first WTC bombers. You got the beheading of Daniel Pearl. You've got the, Akili Laurel hijacker. You got the bomber attacker. You got the Bombay attackers, 9/11 hijackers. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of these organizations out here that a lot of these people represent. Now, some of these are arguable and disputable and those type of things, but it that list goes on and on and on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we have a lot of stuff here. Anybody who wants to gaslight and pretend like this is not a real thing, like Islamic extremism and terrorism is not a real thing, you're outside of reality, bro. You know what I'm saying? You're like, you know what I'm saying? And now there's another thing we're gonna talk about. You know what I'm saying? You got organizations like Al Qaeda, you got ISIS, you got Boko Haram, you got the Taliban, you got the Al Shabaab, you got the Hezbollahs, you got the Hamas, you got the Janam Islamia, and so many more of these like situations out there currently. You know what I mean? And so, we've got this real thing going on with Islamic extremism that is across the face of the globe, and we do like know that, you know, even if we're talking about like maybe what, like 10% of Muslims or 2%, it's a lot of Muslims when you consider there's almost 2 billion Muslims on the face of the planet. And I'm gonna be honest with you, bro, like a lot of the Muslims actually rock with some of this stuff, and they're not telling you nothing. They're sitting quietly, they're quiet aunties and uncles, they're in a house or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And they're just like, they're not really with the movement. Like, they're not gonna actually go out and off somebody or something like that. But when you do dig and you find out, a lot of them would have ways that they actually support this type of behavior, or they actually validate it as some kind of a reaction or a response to something that's happening that they see as uh, as like a threat. Sometimes they'll condemn it openly, but secretly they're like, yeah, like, yo, may Allah bless this guy or something like that. That's one of my homies probably watching right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows, that what that's from. But like a lot of people, when you press them a little bit, like, and you'll notice, like, talk to Muslims about this type of stuff and see what happens, right? Like, and just ask them. A lot of times, their first response is, even if they're willing to say, man, you know what, that's messed up, it shouldn't have happened. They go on to this, but what's happening in Gaza, like, you know what I mean? Like, yo, you think that's crazy? Like, look how many children die. You know what I'm saying? So they move straight into the justification for the action, or straight into the, this is why this is happening. And so when you think about that, and you think about how much support, there's probably a lot more people that rock with the extremist ideology than they do. However, let's get to the last thing that we wanted to talk about. And we wanted to talk about Big Dog, Ah- Ahmed al-Ahmed. You know what I'm saying? Let me see if I can get his information. Just go back to it a little bit. Oh, here he is. So Ahmed al-Ahmed, he's a 43-year-old Austrian citizen, originally from Syria. He actually used to be a police officer and now owns a fruit shop. During the attack at Bondi Beach, he was the one who bravely intervened, managing to disarm one of the attackers. Unfortunately, he got shot in the process, but he survived and he is currently recovering. He is being hailed as a hero by a lot of people, and there's been a huge outpouring of support for him, including from Daily Boy. And this is something, this is like, I don't know, man, this is like a silver lining in the whole story for me, right? Because here we have a man who is a Muslim. Now, whenever people say, oh, well, Muslims are doing this, and then we say, well, there's not all Muslims are like this, I'm saying? Ahmed is probably the standard of what we're talking about here, you know what I'm saying? And so here you have Muslim attackers, seemingly, allegedly, or at least seemingly, we know that they're the attackers, but you have them attacking and killing people, and you have a seemingly, allegedly Muslim hero stepping in to save these people, along with other people who helped out, right? Reuven, Morris, and like all of these other guys. You know what I'm saying? What's even cooler about this is you have a Muslim and a Jew working together to stop two uh, Muslim attackers, right? And here you have this guy stepping in bravely and disarming this guy. And I think there's something that we can learn from this. Now, he has the opportunity to take out this one guy, and he doesn't do it. The other guy from the bridge, the son, shoots him. So, like, you have a Muslim disarming another Muslim, trying to save people from dying, and you have another Muslim trying to kill the man that's trying to save people, and then you got this Muslim aiming at the other Muslim, and he saves him too. He doesn't actually shoot him, and he allows him to get away. Of course, he gets away. He goes. He gets another gun. He keeps shooting at people. It's a very conflicting situation. We don't know what to think, right? Because on the one hand, you got a Muslim hero, but saving us from Muslim terrorists. You know what I'm saying? And so now you got to think like, yo, like, how do we make sense of this? Here's my silver line. Here's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Every single time I have a conversation with Muslims and we point out these incidents, and a lot of Muslims, to their credit, will actually say, yo, fam, they will go into justifications and things like that, but they will say, yo, that's messed up. That's not Islam. We don't do that. Like, that's not what we should be doing, blah, 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 blah. Me and them can have a conversation about that. But they always reference the extremists. And they're like, yo, those are like the radicals or the extremists. And so I like to divvy them up. And Muslims don't like this, by the way. I like to divvy up the extremists on one side and the moderates. I'm calling them moderates. I know some of y'all Muslims don't like to be called moderates. I'm sorry, my guys, but just for the sake of this discussion, accept the labels, right? So you got, if you guys want, I'll call you guys regular Muslims. So you got the regular Muslims and the extremist Muslims, right? On one side. And what we're hearing is that this is the regular Muslims, the vast majority of the Muslims, and this is the one extremist guy out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, they vastly outweigh the numbers of the extremists. And I've been saying, bro, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's have the moderate Muslims, bro. Like, you guys, and this is my advice, you guys don't need to listen to Delhi Boy, because you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know why you would think like somehow I could be some sort of authority to speak to you or something, or why I think I could be an authority to speak to you. But hear me out, right? If you're one of these Muslims and there's these Muslims around, let's work together, bro. Come on, man. Like, let's come together. Like, this is what Al-Ahmed did over here, is he showed us what it could be like if the moderates stood up to the extremists. You know what I'm saying? You guys, bro, this is your guys' fate. This is your guys' religion, bro. You guys, if this is true, which, and I'm skeptical, but if it's true that like you guys are the moderates, and you guys don't rock with the extremism, and you guys condemn them. You don't think they represent Islam. They're not. You know what I'm saying? Expose them, fam. You know what I'm saying? Whenever they're sitting around at your dinner tables in your family and things like that, and I'm gonna ask you guys as Muslims, if you guys are Muslims that totally condemn this action, that you totally like don't think it represents Islam or anything like that, I'm gonna ask you guys to think through your brain and think about your friends and family around you and how they think about it. Are you a person that's like sitting around and your mom or your dad or your brothers or your cousins are saying something and you're like, yo, fam, like these guys are wild. Like these guys might be leaning into extremism. Like, are you a person that's gonna try to talk to them and be like, yo, fam, no, like, yo, boom, like, don't think like that. And if you notice that this is something that, like, you feel like your cousin is getting radicalized or something like that, you feel like he's becoming, like, he's been watching too much Palestinian things and you know what I'm saying? And he's like getting radicalized. Are you gonna go to the authorities? Are you gonna report this guy? Are you gonna go and say, yo, Canadian authorities, G, like, I don't know, bro. Like, I've been in the mosque and I was like there, and my imam started talking about some stuff, and I think he's gone off the rails. I think he's teaching some things that is gonna fester hatred, and you know what I mean. Boom, 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 boom. You guys should be the first line of defense against, and I believe that you guys can pretty much eradicate the extremism away from Islam, because if you guys are really this vast majority of peaceful, loving, kind, caring, wanting to like blend into society, I'm all for it. I'm like, all right, cool, let's work together. You know what I'm saying? We the Christians, you the Muslims. I know some Muslims are like, we we ain't gonna work with you guys against her, because there is a verse where it says, do not take believers disbelievers as friends over disbelievers in the Quran. And there's several kind of passages where it like talks about, sort of only lying to your enemies or something like that. And so, it says that the Jews and the Christians are friends of each other and things like that. You know what I'm saying? So I know some of you are like, no way, we're not doing that. But for the two of you who do think, okay, like you're the vast majority and you think that you represent this peaceful, like virtuous, wholesome version of Islam, and there's these people over here who represent a really twisted, sadistic, perverted form of Islam, because these guys over here will say, well, there's no compulsion in religion, and like, of the Jews and the Christians and the Sabians, they will have nothing to fear from Allah and these type of things, meaning that Jews and Christians and Sabians are going to heaven, you know what I'm saying, on the day of judgment and those things. We won't have to fear of hellfire and those type of things, because there are some Muslims that I met that think like that, right? You guys, if you guys are really this vast majority, let's do this thing. Let's come together. Let's bond together. You guys are the first line of defense here in your family settings, in your home settings, in your school settings, in your friendship circles. If you notice people are acting up, they maybe seem like they're planning something. They seem like, like get them the help, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like get them, you know what I'm saying? Like find out if you have to call the authorities or whatever to stop them from doing something that's gonna like tarnish their own soul. Like it's not good. Sometimes we think, oh, we're saving our people. There's the Rob Ryan, I think his name's Rob Reiner situation, where this guy and his wife was killed by their son in their house, right? And when you come to find out, they had suicidal empathy. You know what I'm saying? So their son was addicted to drugs. Their son was like acting up. He's exhibited signs of violence and stuff before, and they started not trusting the professionals and trusting the word of their son. And now this guy sound like he might have been a manipulator and those type of things, and he might, every drug addicted person is kind of like this. They're just trying to, like, they're motivated by their addiction, and so here he's manipulating his parents and things like that. They kept trying to keep him around, keeping him in the house. They kept and ultimately that led to them being killed. You know what I'm saying? And this is what the suicidal empathy looks like. You know what I'm saying? If you have youth and you think that like by, giving in and like allowing them or not reporting them or not getting them jailed or not getting them arrested, they're going to get the help they need. But then that's not always the case. Sometimes it's better for you to let them go through the process. Sometimes it's better for you to let them go to jail over these things. Sometimes it's better for you to protect them from what they could end up doing, the evil that they could end up doing, like as a result of becoming, you know what I'm saying, radicalized or becoming this guy over here, you know what I'm saying? I hope this is coming through, you know what I'm saying? I think Ahmed is really a sign that this can happen, that we can come together, that we can like put aside the whole thing and be like, okay, what are we doing? We're human. We're humans. We're in humanity. We're part of society, and we want to like work together for human flourishing, for the growth, for the betterment of the community at large. And we care about where we have moral standards and characters and stuff like that. And we're not tribal. We're not thinking about, oh, yo, it's Muslims versus Christians or not, vice versa. Christians same way, like, you know what I'm saying, or Jewish people same way, you know what I'm saying. If you find that you have like a cousin or you have somebody that's talking, for me, like, and for us, I know say is right. If I see a man move in a certain way, best believe authorities report right away. One of my homies called me the other day telling me about something, somebody violated someone. I'm like, dog, call the police, bro. You know what I'm saying? What you calling me for? You know what I'm saying? What? You know what I mean? Your boy is not going to like run up on nobody and do nobody nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, call the boy them. You know what I mean? Go through the legal. And I know the system is not perfect, right? I understand. But again, you know, you have to go through the laws of the land that you're living in, go through the legal ramifications and stuff like that, and try to make reports, whatever. And then ultimately, if something happens and you have to deal with it, at least there's been reports. At least there's been like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you have to put a restraining order on someone or something like that, you know what I'm saying? Let's do this thing. Let's big up the man, Allah, Ahmed, Ahmed, and I pray that like, you know, more Muslims become a Ahmed al Ahmed. I know some Muslims probably like want to kill him right now. Probably hate this guy because of what he did, and they think that this is him, sort of like, you know. But I think he's someone the Muslim community can be proud of. He's someone who represents something that's golden that we can find here to sort of help to fix this whole, to help to like, kind of mend this wound that's happening. Imagine, right? Right now, we have security issues around Christian events around Christmas. I saw one guy in Dearborn who bought a tree. Apparently, I didn't look too deep into this. Apparently, he bought a tree for $10,000 and put it up against like some of the community like influences in Dearborn. And he was a Muslim man, and he bought this Christmas tree and put it up like as a symbol of peace between the Muslims and the Christians. And you know, I rate that type of thing. And like this is what I'm saying. If there is the Muslim moderates, the people who are like, yo, fam, like, no, we're peaceful. We're not like these extremists or whatever. These are good strides. You know what I'm saying? Imagine having a Christmas market where, you know, your local mosque and stuff like that, they get together and you guys talk to each other and you guys say, yo, fam, this thing with the security risks for Christians and Christian events having to shut down all over in Toronto, in their own country, it's not cool, it's not fair, it shouldn't happen. Like, we have to do something about Islamic like extremism, even in the tension of like, you know, the Israel Gaza situation, even in the tension of the Palestine situation. Let's see how we can help out. Let's see if we can help to provide security for some of these things. Let's see if we can donate towards like them getting security so that they can keep their event functioning. Let's see if we can gather as Muslim brothers like and get together and stand outside of these events and make sure that people, that there's nobody coming to disrupt the market and like stand against other people who are coming to like cause chaos and confusion or attack innocent, you know, Christians or youths trying to go to an event, you know what I'm saying, like a Christmas market or these type of things. Let's see if we can, work with the city to, because if that was the movement, if I saw that more, if I saw more mosques and Muslims coming together to fight extremism, if I saw a bunch of Muslim brothers gathered around inside of by a Christmas market, and when these protesters or these people come and descend on the parades or whatnot, they're like, "Yo, fam, get out of here, bro!" Like, you know what I'm saying? Or they stop these guys and talk down to them. Yo, that would go a long way to healing the community. That would go a long way to validating what you've been saying, what you've been preaching for years and years, saying that, like, yo, we have these extremists, we don't rock with them, they don't represent Islam, they're not from us, you know what I'm saying, they don't represent us, and we don't, you know what I'm saying, and we're the vast majority of Muslims, we're the 80-90% of Muslims, and we're peaceful, and we want to coexist, and we want to, like, you know what I'm saying. Now again, Daily Boy has his doubts about whether, about the exact number of how many people actually do, like, rock with that, or I have my doubt that anybody's really gonna do it. To be honest with you, I don't expect someone to watch this video, go to their mosque, and just talk to their mom and, like, be able to organize something like that. But yo, we can dream, you know what I'm saying? We can hope. But yo, God bless, yo. Let me just pray real quick for the whole situation and the world at large. You know what I'm saying? Heavenly Father, we just thank you for who you are and what you are, for your love and your mercy and your grace. Oh God, we pray, oh Lord, for this world and what's going on right now. We pray that you would just reach into our world and heal us. So God, give us peace, give us love, give us wisdom, give us understanding. Help us to be able to come together, not just you know Christians and Muslims, but people of all types of faith and backgrounds right now, oh God, even in this dark time, oh God, and help us to discover virtue, help us to be able to help each other, help us to be able to live good with each other in humanity, oh God. We pray, oh Lord, that you open the minds and the hearts of people, that they would be able to receive whatever it is that you have for us to receive, even from this message, oh Lord. We pray, oh God, that you correct us and help us to not stumble and not to be weakened. We pray against every attack of the enemy on people and on their minds. People who are listening to this right now, we bind every demonic force that's attacking them. We command them to leave right now in Jesus' mighty name. We pray for full deliverance and breakthrough in their life, oh God. We pray, oh Lord, for healing. We pray, oh Lord, against every trauma. We pray, oh God, of every bit of hate that has entered into people's hearts over historical trauma and beef and things that they've gone through, oh Lord. Right now, we pray, oh Lord, that you would be able to not only take away these things, oh God, but even re-weaponize it and use it for your glory and for your kingdom, oh God. We pray for boldness on the part of Christians and on pastors and on leaders to stand in the gap for their people, even in the face of danger, oh God, even in the face of losing their position or losing their authority, or in the danger of becoming cowards, God, in this world, oh God, and bowing to the social and the pressure, the exterior pressure that we so often face from speaking out or talking about these things, oh God. We pray, oh Lord, that you would just heal your nations, oh God, that you would just, like, move, and that ultimately your will be done over all things. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Amen. Anyways, God bless y'all.